everyone, and welcome to Mindful Chats with Nicole Glassman. I'm your host, Nicole, and owner of Mindful Health, a holistic health practice in New York City, and the creator of the Mindful Health Signature Retreat programs. On this podcast, you'll hear authentic conversations with like-minded individuals, practical tools for spiritual connection, and insights into holistic wellness. We'll explore topics like the 7 chakras, tools to connect to your spiritual self, food as medicine, healing your gut, natural stress management tools, metabolic health, and hormonal healing, as well as finding your purpose, using your voice, creating community, and healthy relationships. This podcast will inspire you to use the tools you already have to live from a place of health, passion, and purpose. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Mindful Chats. I'm re-airing my conversation with Carly Hartwig today because it's honestly one that I just keep coming back to. And I really think that so many of you said that it stuck with you and it made an impact. So Carly is a low-tox living expert and a holistic reproductive health practitioner. And what she shares about the everyday products that are quietly disrupting our hormones, our fertility, and our health is something that I really feel every woman deserves to hear. If you've ever felt like something is off and you can't quite figure out why, this episode is a beautiful place to start. And if it resonates, my nervous system reset and total reset programs are open. Mention Mindful Chats when you reach out and you'll receive 10% off because healing is never just about one thing, and I'd love to support you. Enjoy the conversation. Welcome to the show, Carly.
Thank you so much. That was such a kind intro.
I find so much of what I researched about you so interesting, so I can't wait to dive in here. So can you first tell me a little bit about your journey into the wellness space?
Sure. So I'm getting older here. So I used to say like, oh, about a decade ago. Now more like 15 years ago, which is crazy. But, my journey started like, unfortunately, so many other women's where I knew something was going on with my body and I wasn't really taken seriously by my PCP. Everything was kind of dismissed. She kept doing like some really basic lab work and insisted that I was fine. I was the pillar of health. And I was like, well, even if that's what my labs show, like I don't feel good. I don't feel right. I knew that I was taking steps to feel my best, to improve my physical health, my mental health, and nothing was really helping. I had a lot of signs of a thyroid disorder, and she just kept telling me I was fine. So it took me getting a second opinion from a functional medicine provider to realize that not only did I have hypothyroidism, but I was also dealing with some pretty significant heavy metal toxicity and a pretty severe hormone imbalance as well. So that's kind of what dove me headfirst into more of a holistic wellness journey, really taking care of my body from the inside out, instead of just slapping a Band-Aid on things, trying to find the root cause. And it's kind of just evolved from there. So that was really what got me started.
And I would imagine because, discovering the heavy metal issue and the thyroid issue, that led you to toxin exposures.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. And I think now, like, it seems so common knowledge now to know that like there are environmental toxins in our food and our water and our soil and our air and our cosmetics that are completely impacting our health, our reproductive health, our physical health. And at the time, I had no idea. I mean, I was in my, young 20s. I was out binge drinking all the time, never thought about it, right? Never thought that alcohol was a toxin. I would stay up all night, and I knew that what I ate impacted my health. I was a spin instructor at the time. I worked in a gym. So I thought I was pretty healthy, but I had no idea that the products in my home that I was cleaning with or the products that I was putting on my body could be impacting my health. Like that was such an eye-opening kind of journey for me. And it really all came from that provider that I was working with. She was like, have you ever thought about switching to like products without undisclosed fragrance or starting to kind of read ingredient labels? And I was like, oh, I had no idea. And then it's like, you can't unlearn what you learn. And then I just got so passionate about it. And I started realizing that like, this could be a very overwhelming journey but it doesn't have to be. And so that's kind of what led me to start Clean Living with Carly. I was working in a school 5 years ago when the pandemic happened. My school shut down, like most did. And I just had some time on my hands. And I was like, okay, people are kind of thinking about health a little bit right now. Like, let's just start sharing because I think people feel like analysis paralysis. And what I wanted to do with my Instagram community was help people understand that every single swap you make, whether it's trying to use less plastic or switching to cosmetics without parabens and phthalates, those steps add up so quickly. And I'm definitely a testament to it. Like I said, I was young. I couldn't overhaul my life and put all of my products in a box and throw them to the curb. I had to do things slowly, one product at a time. And it really did add up and it made such a difference in my health, in my energy. So I kind of couldn't stop sharing about it.
It's amazing. And this is such a common problem. I don't go through like a session at all with clients without talking about where they might be exposed to something, little things they could do, even when it comes to even the water you're drinking or the water you're showering with, or like
Mhm.
you mentioned, the products you put on your skin. I mean, it's such a huge problem. I know you mentioned a few products already where there could be toxins that people are unaware of, like household cleaning products and things of that nature. Are
Mhm.
there other things that you were kind of shocked to discover were loaded with chemicals?
Definitely makeup, like cosmetics.
Yeah.
I mean, I wear less makeup now, but like back in my 20s, I had like a full face of makeup every single day. And I never thought about like, oh, there's endocrine disrupting chemicals, which those, if you don't know, are a specific type of environmental toxin that we know without a doubt can impact our hormones, right? So these are things that can mimic estrogen. That's a really common one, xenoestrogens. And then that can actually like down regulate our body's production of estrogen. It can lead to estrogen dominance, like all of these things from the products that we use on our face every day, like our makeup. And makeup also tends to be really heavily contaminated with PFAS or forever chemicals and heavy metals. And so at the time, I was shopping at Target or CVS and just buying Maybelline and CoverGirl, like whatever was on sale. And then I realized like, oh, it's time to clean up my makeup drawer. So that was definitely eye opening for me. Plastic, that was a big one. And I had all the plastic containers for my lunch. I would microwave my food in my office in the plastic container. I didn't think about it. And then again, it's like once it makes so much sense. Of course, plastic is going to break down and degrade into our food when we expose it to heat. So that was a big one and slowly kind of transitioning over to glass and things like that. But it was like, I had no idea that these things could be impacting my hormones. That was just crazy to me.
Yeah. I mean, like the plastic cutting boards too. Like I
Mhm.
know that's a big one.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can like if you use it, you can see the little pieces of plastic getting into your food.
Yeah, it's going right into our food.
Yeah.
And microplastics, we all can also take steps to reduce our exposure, and we should. Because microplastics too, it's like we're just starting to scratch the surface on understanding how dangerous some of these chemicals are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am, a huge fan of certain detox tools, but I also recognize like we can't live in a bubble and, we are going to be exposed
Mhm.
to things. So what are your favorite go-tos for kind of detoxing when you know you might have had an exposure?
I really rely on kind of the basics. I look at my diet, I look at the foods that I'm eating. I mean, so many of us are eating ultra processed foods every single day and just putting these chemicals into our bodies. So I kind of just go back to the basics, right? Proteins, vegetables, fruits, and like, yes, buying organic if you can for certain things can be helpful. But if not, a non organic vegetable is going to do more for your body than not having a vegetable, right? Especially those bitter greens. Those bitter greens are wonderful for our body's detox pathways. I also really focus in on sweating because that's another one. I mean, we think about how many years so many of us used aluminum based antiperspirants to stop our bodies from sweating through our armpits. Well, our bodies have to sweat somewhere because that's a huge part of our detox pathway. So allowing my body to sweat, whether it's through, infrared saunas, which I love, exercise, things like that, just definitely embracing the sweat. And then I really like to love on my liver. So that's definitely been a big focus of mine since becoming a holistic reproductive health practitioner and just realizing how insanely important our liver is for our detoxification, for our hormone balance. So getting in those bitter greens, those cruciferous vegetables, starting my day with warm lemon water. It's like these just little foundational things that can make such a difference in your health and definitely in your detox pathways.
When did you start your journey of becoming a certified fertility awareness educator?
So that was funny. It was actually right around the time I got pregnant. So it'll be 4 years this summer. And that was, again, it was a journey of my own self discovery. And then it was like, I couldn't stop talking about it. And I just needed to like scream it from the rooftops. So basically, I was on this journey. I was working with a holistic provider, and I made so much progress with my health, with my energy, like my vitality. I just felt amazing. But there was always still something, especially with my mood, that I couldn't really pinpoint. And I was trying different supplements and different herbs, but it got pretty bad, to be honest with you. And so I was talking with my provider, and she was like, at that point, I think I had been on hormonal birth control for just about 14 years. And again, never once thought about how this was impacting me. Never once thought about the fact that it was like shutting down my reproductive system, right? Like shutting down my cycle, which is like truly our fifth vital sign. And she was like, have you ever considered coming off of hormonal birth control? I was on an IUD at the time. And just seeing how it was impacting you. And maybe it wasn't. And then you go back on. So I was like, okay, well, we were definitely not wanting kids at that point. And so I was like, well, I got to figure out how to avoid unwanted pregnancy. And I stumbled upon fertility awareness methods. Just, I happened to kind of stumble upon it actually on Instagram, as funny as that sounds. And so basically fertility awareness methods, or the non-secular approach, would be like natural family planning. So some people might be familiar with that. But it's basically this idea that by learning about your body's cycle and where you're at in your cycle, you can identify your fertile window, and then you can use that information to avoid pregnancy. So during your fertile window, you can either abstain from intercourse or use barrier methods, things like that. So I found this and I was like, hang on, you're telling me I was on hormonal birth control for 14 years to prevent unwanted pregnancy when I could actually use my own body as birth control? Like, that was just the most mind-blowing, like transformative information I've ever experienced. So again, I dove head first into it. I got my IUD out. I did a lot to support my gut microbiome and my liver, because I learned that those are two areas that kind of hold on to those synthetic metabolites from the hormones in hormonal birth control. And I was a different person. I was a different person within like a few months. It was wild. My mood stabilized. I wasn't up and down all the time. I stopped getting migraines. I used to get chronic migraines, and never once did my OB say like, oh, that could actually be your birth control. So I came off just as kind of an experiment. And then my whole life changed. And then I was like, wait, okay, I want to be able to teach other women this gift. Because to me, body literacy, understanding our bodies, especially in a society where we aren't taught about them, right? I mean, most of us, like, I didn't know what cervical mucus was until my 30s, what it really was, and how my cycle worked until my 30s. And once I started learning, I was like, I want to be able to teach women how to do this. So I went back to school and kind of had a complete career pivot. And it's been amazing. And it's such a privilege to be able to teach women this gift.
And it's the best when it comes from a personal place. Like, you had an experience, you know what it's like to be on the other side of it. You took a leap and it actually led you to what you were supposed to be doing.
100%. Yep. It's been amazing.
Is there a pattern that you're noticing in the women who are having trouble conceiving?
Oh, gosh, yes. And it's very scary to think about the future of fertility in our world, in our country. We have so many couples struggling, and we're not having the conversations that we need to have. So what I see with a lot of my clients who are trying to conceive is, one, they're completely missing their fertile window because nobody's telling them how to identify their fertile window. Two, they're unaware of these endocrine disrupting chemicals that are wreaking havoc on their hormones, on their fertility, on their menstrual cycles. And then three, we're not talking about men's fertility, right? The focus is so much on women, but actually, we know that men's fertility globally is rapidly declining. And then in the next couple of decades, men are going to reach global infertility, meaning that men will not be able to reproduce without like fertility technology.
Wow.
And that's because, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
There's been some really cool research, if anyone wants to learn more, by Dr. Shanna Swan. She is a world-renowned epidemiologist, and she's been studying this, been studying the global decline in sperm quality and quantity. And a huge reason why sperm is not doing so hot these days is endocrine disrupting chemicals, specifically
Mm,
phthalates and
mm.
their impact on sperm quality and quantity. And so she's expecting with her research that we will reach that global infertility in the next couple of decades, which is alarming. And yet, we're still not involving men in the conversation. We're not talking about things that men can do to improve their sperm quality and quantity. We're not talking about, you know, EMFs and laptops on their lap and the role that alcohol and exercise play in their sperm quality and quantity and their sperm health. And it needs to be a part of the conversation. So there's definitely some trends, and I'm hoping that it becomes more mainstream in the very near future to start talking about these things.
And they're finding that it's affecting men even worse than it's affecting women?
Specifically sperm. Yeah. Which
Wow.
is just so crazy. And then these phthalates, so this specific class of endocrine disrupting chemicals, which unfortunately are kind of ubiquitous. So they're in a lot of plastic based products, right? And so they're in a lot of cosmetics, personal care products. They're also in a lot of products where there's a strong fragrance or scent, because phthalates can help the scent kind of stick, right? So you think about like washing your clothes with those scent beads, and then you can still smell them like weeks later. That's probably phthalates. Or, you put on a perfume and you can still smell it a few days later, whatever it is. So these phthalates, they're everywhere. And there are definitely things that we can do to reduce our exposure, which is really encouraging. And that's what I try to focus on, because I know it can be like really doom and gloom. But we actually have research showing that utero exposure. So, like if a woman is pregnant with a boy, that mom being exposed to ingesting, phthalates, whether it's ingesting or like through their skin and things like that, that's impacting that baby boy's future fertility, because it's impacting the way that his testosterone, his, male reproductive parts are being developed, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, I remember learning about the impact of cortisol too
Mhm.
on, on a baby, and that the mom could steal, the baby's cortisol inadvertently if she
Mhm.
was deficient or had some disruption there, and then
Yeah.
the baby is born with a cortisol issue.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. Are there things that you would tell men that they should look out for? Or, I mean, I know you mentioned the laptops, on their lap, and alcohol and
Mhm.
exercise. So it's more about, how much alcohol consumption and getting more exercise.
Yes, 100%. We need to completely cut out alcohol in that preconception period. And I know it's not a popular thing for me to say, but it just has to happen. We have so much research showing what alcohol is doing. And this goes for women as well when we think about our egg quality. But even more research around sperm. And again, sperm are not doing very well right now. So some of my best tips, if a couple is trying to conceive, would be, yes, let's be mindful of heat around, testicles, right? We need to keep those sperm cool. So no laptops, no phones in their pockets, no saunas, hot tubs, things like that. And again, we're thinking about this as a preconception window. So sperm and our eggs both go through a 3-month maturation process. So the things that you do 3 months before getting pregnant really, really matter. So I love to see couples really dialing in their preconception health for at least 3, even better, 6 months. So we want to get rid of the heat for men. We want to ditch the alcohol. And of course, if they're smoking, we want to ditch that as well. We want them to move their bodies. We want them to get a nice, diverse diet, lots of omega-3 fatty acids, lots of protein, things like that. And then my third rec, and this is somehow like not a popular recommendation, and I'm hoping that changes, is to get men on a prenatal.
Hmm.
We talk about women being on a prenatal. That's kind of common knowledge. Unfortunately, a lot of women's prenatals are not very robust, but that's another conversation. But men should be on a prenatal too. We know that there are vitamins out there. There's CoQ10, there's zinc, there's NAC, there's even things like Shilajit, which there's a lot of research around, folate. These things can absolutely make a difference when it comes to sperm motility, sperm count, having more viable sperm, and even prepping for like sperm and egg fusion. So we need to get men on a prenatal, and that just needs to become kind of common recommendations.
That's so interesting. That's the first time I've heard that, and it makes complete sense.
Yeah. It's like so crazy. I post about this all the time because it's just, like I said, it's not talked about. And then it's kind of one of those things where you're like, oh, well, duh. Of
Yeah.
course a man should be able to, right? It takes two, but we put so much of the onus on women, you know? So with the way sperm are right now, only 1 in 4 men has optimal sperm.
Wow. Oh my
That's it.
gosh.
That's it. And men who take these prenatal supplements with these targeted antioxidants and vitamins to improve sperm quality have a 4 times greater chance of getting their partners pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
So I like to share that because again, it can be doom and gloom when we're talking about sperm, but there's so much that men can do. And then of course, cleaning up a man's personal care products. So making sure that they're not using products that have undisclosed fragrance, right? So if you see fragrance on the label, put it back and find a better option because that just means that a company is not telling you what's actually in
Yep.
there. And there's this thing called the fragrance loophole. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but basically companies can hide any combination of like 3,000 plus chemicals in their products under the term fragrance. And these chemicals often include phthalates, again, to make that fragrance stick. So even just starting to read labels like that, making sure that, your partner isn't microwaving their food in plastic, drinking hot coffee out of plastic cups, things like that. Even coffee machines. I mean, people don't like to think about this one, but when I think about like, okay, how can I make an impact in my health, thinking about like environmental toxin, endocrine disrupting chemicals, I like to think about what am I using every single day? My makeup, my skincare, my deodorant, probably like my all purpose cleaner, some of those like big things that you're using literally every single day. And then for me and a lot of other people out there, we're drinking coffee every day.
Yeah.
And that coffee, if you're coming through an automatic drip coffee maker, that's pushing boiling hot water through plastic,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, like, I love to tell couples if they're trying to conceive, like, hey, maybe it's time to switch over to French press or pour over to get rid of that plastic. Because again, that's microplastics, that's bisphenols, that's phthalates, and that's every single day. So I like to think like, what's going to make the most bang for my buck, And it's going to be the things that we use every single day.
Is there a site that you use? Like, I know there's a couple that sometimes I will go to if I'm about to buy a product to see how it's ranked among, like, the dirty list, or is there
Yeah.
anything you recommend that you use?
So there's definitely a lot of great options out there. And if someone is like just getting started, I think they can be really helpful. Most of these apps or websites, there's some biases. None of them are perfect.
Hmm.
But in terms of just like having a baseline, I think some of EWG's resources are really good.
That's the one I use.
Yeah, I used that a lot in the beginning, to be honest with you. And now I've educated
Hmm.
myself to the point that like I can look at a label and pretty quickly know if it's something I want to bring into my home for my family. But when I was just getting started, I relied on theirs a lot. I also really like Clearia. And there's this nice, it's another free one. You just download the app or you can use it on their internet, on their website. What I like about it is you can scan products too. It doesn't give you a rating. It just tells you what the ingredients are and if any of the ingredients have like studies around them showing potential harm. And then you can even go further and like click right on the ingredients if you want to learn more. So I like that because ultimately, like, we're all going to have different comfort levels when it comes to our families. I know a lot of people in my community, their comfort level for the products that they put on their babies, it's very different than the comfort level they have for themselves.
So true.
So we all kind of have different priorities with that, and so I really like the Clearia app because it kind of puts it in your hands. It's like, here's all the information. Now you make an informed and empowered decision, which that is my jam.
I love that. No, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to chat too about the ritual of charting your menstrual cycle. Like, how has that changed your life pre and post pregnancy?
Oh my gosh. I am so grateful that I found fertility awareness methods before I got pregnant because I just became so in tune with my body. So prior to learning this method, I had no real knowledge of our menstrual cycle. I thought our period was like the most important thing, right? And like, yes, I knew it shouldn't be crampy and it shouldn't be super heavy, but like that was really it. I didn't realize that we have like multiple distinct phases within our menstrual cycle. And we really live in this infradian rhythm where we are not the same woman every single day because of what is going on with our hormones. So when I learned how to chart my cycle, how to identify, when I'm in my follicular phase, which is that first half of your cycle, why I started to feel like that energy burst, because of, rising estrogen, which is our dominant hormone in the first half of our cycle. Why I was more tired towards the end of my cycle or more tired during my period. Well, that's because our hormones are at their lowest point. Progesterone is our dominant hormone in our second half of our cycle that revs up our metabolism. So we burn more calories. That's why so many of us are more hungry before we get our periods. Like everything just kind of clicked into place and made so much sense. And so I started charting my cycles. Again, the freedom I found by knowing that I could use my body as birth control was incredible. It was just so liberating. And then I knew exactly when to time intercourse to get pregnant. And we were very fortunate. We got pregnant on the first try, and that was really exciting. And it wasn't scary because I had so much trust in my body. And the trust in my body was 100% gained by learning how to chart my menstrual cycle and understanding my body. So I had a wonderful pregnancy and birth, and then postpartum, I was fortunate enough to know that breastfeeding wasn't birth control. And that's a huge misconception out there. And that's why we end up with a lot of Irish twins accidentally. And again, it's like no one's teaching us this stuff, right? So I continued to chart my menstrual cycle with my fertility awareness method. I started at 6 weeks postpartum. And I'm very glad I did, because even though I was nursing on demand, nursing around the clock, we bed shared, we contact napped, we did all the things, I ovulated at 2.5 months postpartum.
Wow.
I got my first period 2 weeks later at 3 months postpartum.
Wow.
And then I've been cycling consistently ever since. It was wild. I didn't expect it, but it was almost funny because it was like, okay, this is like my body just wanting me to get more practice charting my cycles, right? So it was really cool to know exactly when that was happening, to not be surprised by my first postpartum period, to not be worried that, we were going to have an unwanted pregnancy, because I definitely did not want to get pregnant right after I gave birth. So again, it just gave me so much freedom, so much autonomy. And I've been charting ever since. And more recently, I've been charting my transition into perimenopause, which is another one of those topics that we aren't talking about enough and women don't understand. And I don't think a lot of women know that can be, 10 to 15 years before menopause. And it's diagnosed through symptom changes. And so by charting your menstrual cycle and being able to see in a linear fashion what's going on with your cycles, you can start to identify, something might be going on. Let's try to figure out what it is. You can even start to pinpoint like thyroid disorders or hormone imbalances just by charting your cycle, because you'll know exactly how long your phases are. If you see a lot of spotting, that's a bit of a red flag. And then one of the best parts is your period is never a surprise. Like, I think about all the times that women are completely shocked when they get their period and they're rushing around and finding a drugstore to get some pads or tampons. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. Our periods don't have to be a surprise. They don't have to be this miserable thing that we dread. There's so much power in our periods because they are truly our fifth vital sign. They tell us as much about our bodies as our breathing rate and our heart rate and our blood pressure. And I just want more women to respect their cycles, because they're basically like a free monthly report card of your health. And it's all so
That's a
connected.
great way to look at it. And would you have, even if it's a charting of perimenopause, would you have a person chart every phase, or are you having them focus mostly on when they're getting their period and that, or you go through the entire month?
I try to go through the whole month. So when we think about our cycle, it starts with our period, which your period should be pain-free. And people look at me like I'm crazy, but that's true. It should be pain-free. The only reason I know I'm getting my period is because I chart it. I don't have PMS. I don't bloat. I don't have painful cramps. And this is normal. And anything else is not normal. So your period, it should start out with heavier bleeding and then it should taper. We're looking for like ideally 4 to 6 days of bleeding in total. And then after, we start to enter that phase where our estrogen starts to rise. So during this, we will start to notice, if we're paying attention, our cervical mucus. So cervical mucus is produced by our cervical crypts in response to rising estrogen in that first half of our cycle. And estrogen will rise until ovulation, and then it will drop. And our estrogen is why so many of us, again, if you're starting to pay attention, feel more energized in that first half of our cycle after our period ends. We have a lot of good energy for like cardio workouts. We tend to be in a really good mood and maybe even feel like more optimistic, right? Like our mood is just so deeply impacted by our cycle. So we should see our cervical mucus start to transition to more of that like egg white cervical mucus that's like super stretchy and clear, and we see more of it. And that's our body's way of telling us we're getting ready to ovulate or release an egg. So then we ovulate, and then we have that sharp change in our estrogen, which drops, and our progesterone, which rises. Our progesterone, as I mentioned, is that kind of warming hormone. It revs up our body's metabolism. It revs up our basal body temperature. So basal body temperature is another really great biomarker to track, and it can give you so much insight into your cycle health. And then the second half of our cycle, we refer to that as our luteal phase. This is a time that we start to maybe feel a little bit more introspective. In the second half, so it should be around 2 weeks long. The second half, we should start to feel maybe a little bit less energy as our hormones start to drop right before our periods. Again, this time is when our bodies are burning more calories, so our metabolism is higher. We might feel a little bit hungrier. And then our period shouldn't be a surprise because that luteal phase should be pretty consistent around like 2-ish weeks long. So the reason I like women charting everything is because if we start to see that your luteal phase is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, we're going to want to address that. We're going to want to rule out a thyroid disorder because that's really common in women, and a lot of women don't know they have one, and that can cause lower progesterone, that can cause a shorter luteal phase. We also want to, if you have a shorter luteal phase, you're dealing with a lot of spotting in your second half of your cycle, we want to maybe do some hormone testing and see what's going on there because it could be low progesterone. And there's a lot of different root causes for that. So the beauty really comes with charting your cycle, like I said, in kind of a linear fashion from the first day of your period to the day before you get your next period, because it can just tell you so much about the healthier cycle.
That's such great information. Thank you for walking us through that, because I think that a lot of what you said, people are going to be
Yeah.
unaware of, especially like the thyroid connection and everything that's related to that.
Mm-hmm.
And is there something about women's health that you've learned that you think most women are unaware of?
Honestly, it's how important ovulation is. Because again, I think so many of us focus on our periods, right? Like think about like getting your first period when you were younger. It was such a big deal. And the focus was all on the bleeding, right? Like we're women now. We got our first periods, but like really ovulation is our cycle's main event. And it is so important for health because it's showing us that our hormones are going through those cyclical changes. And if we're not ovulating, there's a reason why, and we need to figure that out. So I would say just how important ovulation is. And then also just again, that we are not the same women every day. I mean, I think we can beat ourselves up sometimes. Like I know for me, when I was a spin instructor, I would have some classes that just drained me, just depleted me. And I would walk out of the room and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel awful. Right. And then other classes, I would walk out of the room and I would feel like I could take on the world. Right. I just had this amazing energy. I felt so good. And I would kind of get hard on myself. Like, why is this happening? And then I started to realize like, oh, it's because of where I'm at in my cycle. And it's something that I just wish more of us as women understood. I wish our partners understood it more because I think there's so much pressure put on women to show up in a certain way. You know, you think about like the mental load of being a woman, and it's like, but wait, we're not the same women 365 days a year. So we have to take that pressure off. and kind of lean into the ebbs and flows of our cycle. There's just so much power there. And I wish more women could know it, could understand it, and could tap into it.
I love that you mentioned that too, that, you aren't the same person every day and there's reasons for it. And it's not just
Mhm.
stress and it's, not someone just that someone irritated you or whatever it might be. But,
Yeah.
there's chemical issues, there's physical components that are happening.
Right.
So,
Right.
speaking of people irritating you, no, I'm just kidding. But I know, stress and lifestyle and things that are happening can, make us ungrounded and can also affect our hormones as well. And so what do you do for yourself to stay in balance?
Oh, I would have had such a different answer 6 months ago, but I mostly stopped taking care of myself towards the end of last year. I'm a full time mom. I'm working on building this business. I have my Instagram community and just all the things. And I just kind of stopped. I stopped doing all of the things that would fill my cup, right? And Christmas Day last year, I got sicker than I've ever been in my life, like truly my life. I I hit rock bottom. And I realized like a week later, once I was kind of through it, that this was my body's way of telling me, like, we can't keep going on like this. My stress level was out of control. My nervous system was so dysregulated. I was just in a chronic state of fight or flight, which unfortunately is not uncommon with women and is almost glorified a little bit, right? Like we wear stress like a badge of honor and I hate it so much.
It's very
So
true.
I kind of got to that place and realized like I needed to kind of crawl my way out. And so over the last 6 months, give or take, I have really prioritized stress reduction practices, nervous system regulation, and taking care of my mind and my body. And I will tell you, Nicole, I am a different person because of it. And it hasn't been easy, but I've stayed so consistent. So some things that have really, really helped me personally, meditation, and it's World Meditation Week right now. So if anyone is looking for some motivation to meditate, just start. It's things that it's free. You can do it at any time. It can be 2 minutes long. It can be 20 minutes long. And I think there's so much intimidation of like, oh, I can't just sit there in silence and not think. But it's not even about that. It's about recognizing the thoughts that come into our mind, right? And instead of ruminating on them, we just let them pass. And so there has been so much power in just meditating every day. Exercise has been a huge part of that. Exercise was such a big part of my life before I gave birth, and that includes pregnancy. I stayed so active in my pregnancy, and I know that helped my labor and my birth and my pregnancy itself. And then, I became a mom, and it was harder to find time for myself to exercise consistently. And it kind of got put on the back burner. And I have been exercising consistently since January. And oh my gosh, do I feel the difference both in my strength, but also with my mental health and my stress release, right? Like it just, oh my gosh, you just take it out on a spin bike or lift some heavy weights. And it's just like everything is better instantly. So that's been huge for me. I've been doing a lot of like kind of somatic things to help with my nervous system regulation, deep breath work and deep breathing. And again, that is free. If you just stop and intentionally deep breathe for 2 minutes, your body will calm down. Your cortisol will lower. Like there is so much power in our breathing and we kind of just take it for granted. And then something else that I've been loving is yoga. So I have a wonderful yoga studio by me and some weeks my body needs like a restorative class which is just lovely. And then other weeks I'm up for that kind of power vinyasa class and it's a heated class and I walk out so sweaty and I love it so much. It's different because I get to leave my house and go to do it. So it's like, my husband, my daughter, they can interrupt me and it's been a really big part of my journey and I've stayed really consistent with it.
I love all those answers.
Yeah, I'm in a different place. And it's sad that I had to kind of hit rock bottom to get there, but I'm almost grateful that that happened because I'm taking care of myself so much more. So,
Yeah, and you know what? It's real life, and I even had this conversation on another show with a guest that there's almost this epidemic of being busy means that you're valuable or means that you're needed. Yeah, and it is like a badge of honor to
yeah,
be busy, but we're we're busy beyond being able to be balanced, and it's taking a toll on everyone's mental and emotional well-being,
Oh
their
my
physical
gosh.
health as well. And then it's like all of a sudden everyone's burnt out and miserable. So
Mhm.
good for you for, taking the reins and staying consistent with it.
It has been it's just made a world of difference. And I also like to share because, I think we all know, like, yes, we need a little bit of cortisol. Too much cortisol is obviously destroying us. And like you said, we're just all so burnt out. But another reason to get control of your stress and your nervous system is cortisol actually competes with progesterone production. So when we have excess cortisol, our body will downregulate production of progesterone, which is so wild to think about, like how our bodies are just so wise. It's just so freaking cool. But anyways, so having too little progesterone can lead to having too much estrogen, and that is the most common hormone imbalance out there. So we have to think about how much this excess stress and busyness, as you said, is impacting our hormone health too.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that. It's true. It's like our body has like a brake and an accelerator kind of built in, and it's kind of
Mhm,
trying to protect us from overdoing it. But a lot of people don't really know
mhm.
how to read the signs. We just know we don't feel well.
Right. Right, 100%.
I know you mentioned too, having to balance being a mom and an entrepreneur and everything that goes with that. And we do have, a number of people listening to the show that are also either entrepreneurs or aspiring to be. And so I love asking the guests, what do you feel the most rewarding aspect of working as an entrepreneur has been?
The time freedom, honestly.
Hmm.
I worked in a school for years. I thought I would retire from working in a school. So it's funny how, life kind of can take a completely different turn. And when I had my daughter, everything just changed. It's like my world just tilted on its axis. And all I wanted to do was be with her. And building my business has allowed me to do that. And I am so grateful. Even on my hardest days when it feels like I can't cross a single thing off my to-do list and I'm so behind in some of my big audacious like business goals and things I want to do with my fertility business and things like that. But then I think about all the time I've had with my daughter and the freedom that I've had because I'm not tied down to a job that I have to clock in and out of. And I wouldn't trade it for the world, even on the really hard days or the days that I have to stay up really late trying to get some work done, because I didn't get anything done during the day. I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah, it gives you that freedom to kind of choose your own schedule, which really is huge.
Yeah.
What do you think has been your greatest challenge?
Ugh, time management, especially as a mom.
Hmm.
It's just like I'll have all these goals in a day, and then I get to the end of the day, and I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't get much of those done. Life is going so fast as a mother, and nothing is more important to me than my daughter and not missing out on things with her. So I really put her first. I know a lot of people talk about their business as their baby. My business is not my baby. My baby is my baby.
Sure.
I'm very passionate about and I love what I do and it's a privilege to get to work with women, in any capacity, whether I'm working with them on hormone issues or teaching them a fertility awareness method or helping them choose low tox products for their family and taking that stress away, things like that. It's a privilege. It really is. It's such an honor to be a part of the journeys here for women in my community. And also, like, my daughter will always take priority. So, time management has been hard. I follow a woman who is just amazing with like time blocking, and I'm working on it and getting a little bit better. But I also think, I've kind of had to let some things go. And I am a struggling perfectionist, and it's something that I'm trying to get over. And I've had to come to terms with the fact that I can't get it all done. I just can't. There's only so many hours in the day. And again, I'm going to take some of the time in my day and take care of
Yeah.
myself. And that has to happen for me to show up as a mom, to show up as a practitioner.
Yeah.
So time management has definitely been an interesting one.
It sounds like you're getting to a place where you're able to prioritize what's important, and I feel like that's huge. So if, and everyone we all know,
Mhm.
like unfortunately, in today's world, our lists are endless. They're
Yeah,
literally, you can cross things off and you're putting something right back on it. So if we can kind of go through life and say, we're never going to cross it all off, just do your best, we might actually be in a better place.
exactly. And then we need to be adding taking care of ourselves onto our to-do list and
Exactly.
not cancel on ourselves, treat it like a really important appointment with a client. Like you wouldn't cancel on someone else, but we cancel on ourselves all the time. I'm definitely in a place where I will have to make some sacrifices for, my business and my goals in order to take care of myself. And that's okay.
All of that is great advice. And everybody, please listen to that. And how can people work with you?
So, all of my current offerings are on my website. So, it's cleanlivingwithcarly.com. And I have quite a few different things. So, if someone is just getting started in the low-tox living, I offer one-on-one consults to, help you do it without stress. So, I recently worked with a woman. She's a first-time mom and she's trying to put together a registry and she's so overwhelmed. So, we did a Zoom consult and put together her registry together and helped her kind of prioritize things. I also offer one-on-one consults for women who are dealing with hormone imbalances or not being taken seriously by their providers and told that their painful, heavy periods are normal. And then I also work with women who want to learn a fertility awareness method. So the method that I use and teach is called the Justice method. It is a very standardized method. It can be used as birth control with 99.6% efficacy when used perfectly. And then it can also be used just to chart your cycles for your health. And then it can be used to chart your cycles to optimize your chances of conceiving, which is really cool. Like you only have to learn one fertility awareness method, and then you get like a lifetime of body literacy, and you can use that method whatever your goals are. So I teach women that as well. And then I have some ebooks too for low tox living. Again, if someone's just getting started and they want to take the easy button, I definitely wish I had those when I was getting started. It took a lot of trial and error to find products that were good, because nobody wants like a cleaning product that doesn't work well, or makeup that doesn't work well.
Or
So,
deodorant? That's the one
yes.
everyone always says.
Yeah, I know. And you know what I say? We're supposed to sweat. And we just have to embrace it. And you know what? Sweat doesn't smell. Side note, it's the bacteria on our skin that causes the odor. So, what I tell people is start using a toner on your armpits. As weird as that sounds, it has helped me so
Oh,
much,
that's a good idea.
especially with the postpartum body odor. I use a toner spray, but you can also like rub a cut lemon. Not after shaving. No, don't do it after shaving. But if you haven't just shaved lemon under there, or like use a little apple cider vinegar, and that'll just get rid of all that bacteria. And then you put your
That's a great
deodorant on.
idea.
Life
I love
changing. But
that.
I know that's definitely a hard one for people. And that might be one where you have to try a few brands to find your perfect
Yeah.
fit. But I promise it's out there. Yes, I have books to help people as well. And then, yeah, I'm pretty active on Instagram at Clean Living with Carly as well.
Well, I know that there's like amazing information in this interview, and I so enjoyed talking to you. And I know that our audience is getting so much value out of this. So thank you so much for being with us and sharing your expertise and all of your tips. There's been wonderful tips here. And everyone, all of Carly's contact information will be in the show notes. So thank you again for being here, Carly.
Thank you so much. This is great.
And everyone, thank you for tuning in and have a beautiful day.